Look, Minister, I listened carefully to your speech, and unfortunately you never once mentioned the government responsibility to provide additional and practical supports and services to communities where populations have increased due to new arrivals. And the first thing that most people in these communities will say to you is the existing services or supports are already under pressure, and they will almost always mention the local GP. And I have repeatedly raised the issue of why I cannot understand why the frustration and the tension that this causes in communities is so easily avoidable if the government, department by department, would do their bit. So we're putting 100 refugees into Ballydreen. What do they need? The 2 GPs are running waiting lists. Can we put a contract nurse into the health centre that's sitting there? Can we share that with Boyle, who now have nearly 300 refugees and are also under pressure, and share that resource? Can we do something? Can the HSE do anything to support these communities? And I cannot understand why we allow this to build up. And it's deliberate, because I've raised it repeatedly and nothing has changed. The Tánaiste that told me last week, oh, I'll provide a list of where medical resources has gone in. I'm still waiting for the list, because it hasn't happened. My hometown is Ballydreen. We're receiving refugees since 2017, and we have nothing to show for it. They were welcomed. Unlike in some places, they were welcomed. And that was it. Nothing else. No additional resources, no practical supports. And then for those people, and they're not in Ballydreen, but for those people in areas where they just don't want new arrivals, then you're handing them the perfect excuse on a plate, because they'll say to you, oh, we don't have the resources, we don't have the supports, we can't manage. And in an awful lot of cases, that can be dealt with by the government, department by department, particularly around health and education, but it isn't happening. I welcomed the Community Recognition Fund. It's a good initiative, but it's for sports clubs and local organisations. It does not provide the practical supports and services that are needed. In the case of Ballydreen, funding was announced 4 or 5 years ago for a new childcare facility. That funding has recently been pulled. And again, I would say it is a town that is the most economically and socially poor in County Roscommon. It's done more than its bit. And again, this funding has recently been pulled, so nothing to show for it. And just finally, before I conclude, I do see an issue, and if it begins to grow, we're going to have more tension and more frustration, in which people are buying up buildings, particularly in rural communities where the supports and services are not there. They're making a ton of money, and they frankly couldn't care less about the community. That's going to become a big issue if it continues to grow, and if more and more buildings are used for this purpose without the supports and services from government. So I would again ask, department by department, the government would do their bit, avoid the tension and the frustration by providing supports to these communities. Thank you.
Deputy David Cullinane.